Welcome to the Project Endure podcast, the place where we talk about life, endurance, persistence, perspective, and so much more. I'm Joe Rinaldi, and I'll be your host. Let's jump in. Before we get started, let me ask you a question. Have you ever noticed that what you wear has the power to change how you feel? Project Endure apparel is designed to remind you that easy won't make you stronger, and that growth is an uncomfortable choice that we all have the privilege to make every day. Look good, feel good, and perform good. Head to the link in the show notes to shop Project Endure apparel and keep on doing hard things. Now, let's get to the episode. Welcome back to the Project Endure podcast, episode 38. We have myself, Joe Rinaldi, and we have a very, very special guest down in Florida, Brian Pruett. Brian, how are you, man?
What's up? What's up, man? Stoked to be here. I'm doing great.
Cool, man. Well, this is our first time talking. I've been following you for a little bit. You've been following me for a little bit. We've got a lot of the same stuff going on in the social media world. But I am just so excited for the opportunity to get to know you a little bit. So why don't you introduce yourself really to me and to our audience and tell us a little bit about you?
Heck yeah, bro. I'm stoked to be here. Yeah, man. So really, I'm just a dude who's passionate about getting 1% better in all aspects of life, man. Like, I feel like we just spoke briefly before this. You and I both, man, we're passionate about just like showing up. In fact, that's one of the things I love most about you is you just show up consistently. And the beauty in that is you don't got to be perfect. You just take one step at a time. So, man, a little bit about me is kind of like, I feel like for me is the identity piece is huge. I played baseball. I found my self-worth in baseball, my identity in baseball. And if anybody listening has gone through something like that, or gone through something where you lose an identity, right? You put all your eggs in one basket. It's kind of a big shock. And so, man, like when I stopped playing ball, I'm like, who am I? I don't know. I don't even know who I am because everything I did was baseball related. So long story short, Joe, it was like a quarter life crisis, for lack of better words. And I kind of went down this journey, like rediscovering myself. And so what I loved about strength conditioning and fitness and health and wellness is, number one, when you get healthier, you experience life on a greater level. Your quality of life goes up. You can serve more, love more. You can give more. You name it, dude. You have a better life, which is amazing. And the other thing, Joe, is every single rep, every single day you show up, man, you get that back. So when you reap, you actually sow. And with baseball, I never felt like I actually played up to my potential. So it ended up kind of being a letdown. It was like my career was kind of like that airplane, just, and like I knew I wasn't going to, make it to the big. So I hung it up. But with fitness and with training, man, every single day you get out what you put in. And so for me, that kind of sparked the passion to live this like be fit for life mindset. I want to be fit for my wife, for my future kids, for my friends, for people, my clients, obviously. Like I want to be fit for life because I feel like when you experience life on that level, it's contagious and I want to share it with more people. So.
Dude, when the pandemic started, I thought a lot about things being contagious, right? Everybody was scared about catching this thing that's contagious. Wow. Energy, attitude, how we carry ourselves, contagious, right?
Wow.
Where do you get your energy from? Because you clearly have a lot of it.
I feel like I overcompensate with energy when I get excited, but which I don't even know if that makes sense. But the energy for me is, I think it's like anchored into knowing how short life is, like the urgency of life. I'm a very positive minded guy. Man, to your point, that's a great call with the contagion, like good or bad, virus or mentality.
Yeah.
So even like if someone says something negative to me, I even have to like remind myself like it's all right. Like I will get that type of vibe from people, and I'm like I choose not to listen to that, or I choose not to believe in that. So I feel like I'm very impressionable from that standpoint. So I really do watch what I listen to, what I read, what I watch, because if I'm filling up on life, I can then give more life to other people. So I'm very cognizant of that. But I think just to go back to your point, and my original idea was, man, I think knowing life could end tomorrow. I think the idea of like knowing we're going to die one day, this is one life we have here on earth, dude, it fires me up. And if it's not going to matter in 50 years, man, why do we spend so much time like worrying about stuff today? So there's only one response to waking up in the morning for me, and I'm sure it is for you too. And what is it, bro? It's thank you. What an amazing gift to have a new shot at life. And I don't care what it is, man. If you're in the valley or the mountaintop, I mean, dude, like you're alive, right? That's a beautiful thing. So for me, that's where the energy comes from, and then being able to give that to people. I know you're reading scripture, and what did Jesus say, man? It's more blessed to give than to receive. When I try to hold stuff in and when I overly focus on myself, that's when I kind of feel like I'm dragging. And I've had those days, man, trust me, like recently. But I think the more I kind of like look out and say, man, thank you for life. God, thank you for this day. And then picture just giving people energy and building them up, man, that's what fires me up.
And have you always had that perspective on life, or was there a season of life or something that happened to you that helped shift it toward that positive mentality, or have you always been like that?
It's a great question. I really have been more of a positive guy for most of my life. I was a hothead, man, when I was younger. I was super ultra competitive. I'm not saying like I was that guy in high school, because I think I mellowed out by then.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I was more so distracted. So I think the energy level, I was always a fun guy to be around and stuff, but I was kind of directionless. Yeah. So it was almost one of those things where I probably overcompensated because I didn't really have a purpose and I wasn't living for my true self. Yeah. Right. I wasn't believing the truth about myself. I was kind of believing this lie where it's like, well, I'm maybe made for average, or it doesn't really matter as much. Like I'm not going to run and chase my potential. Right. Yeah. So I think the journey of like discovering myself after baseball, that really fired me up to know, man, there's more to life, right? I'm made for more. And when I realized that, and as I began growing in this new identity of somebody who helps men and people unlock their God-given potential, that's kind of what helped me flip the switch to always have that perspective.
That's beautiful, man. Yeah, man. And I think one of the things that you and I share in common is obviously fitness, but for me, fitness is this thing.
By the way, you're a beast, dude. I just saw your story today. I'm like, man, this dude's doing an hour of cycling. He just ran a mile. Like, man, you're a legend.
I appreciate that, man. Coming from you, it means a lot, but it's one of those things that I truly love, and it's not who I am, but it's part of who I am. And for me, fitness is this beautiful metaphor for life, because when you struggle and you do hard things physically, your body adapts, right? You grow, you become more resilient, stronger. But in life, when hard things happen to us, when we choose to pursue hard things, we also grow. We become more resilient. We find strength through that struggle. And so the first main question that I want to ask you on this podcast is, what is the hardest thing that you've ever had to handle in life? So a circumstance that you didn't necessarily get to choose for yourself, but you had to face it. So what was that thing, and how did that shape you?
Man, that's a great question. It's a deep question too. I mean, in terms of, I hate to bring it back to baseball, but in terms of like the identity crisis and relationship trauma, those two things happen at the same time. Those two things coincided when I was a freshman, sophomore in college, right? So it wasn't just one, it was kind of both. And then you just add being young at the same time. It could be traumatic and very, it leaves an impression on you. I'm very blessed, man. I had a couple family members pass when I was young, and like not direct too, because it wasn't like that. So I didn't have anything like a heavy loss like that to walk through. So very blessed from that standpoint. So I'll talk on the college baseball relationship trauma. Man, it was tough, dude. So I'm not sure. I joked with my dad. I had a podcast with him, which was awesome, by the way. There's nothing like being in a room or a virtual room with somebody, hitting record, being fully present, and exchanging energy and messaging and word. And so I joked around with him, and I think it's an interesting idea, like what happens to you when you're young. Like when I was born, I had the umbilical cord wrapped around my neck. So I came into the world choking, right? About to die. He thought I was going to die. I was purple. Your boy's looking like Barney coming out of the womb. And so I actually choked on food and I legitimately like pretty much passed out early on in my life too. So those two things coincided with this relationship trauma and this baseball journey. And I think I developed severe panic attacks, anxiety, getting physically sick, debilitating, man. I was helpless. And it just stemmed from those things happening together. Perfect storm. I remember thinking, man, this is something I'm going to live with the rest of my life. I'm going to have to get through this or live with it. And man, God is good. He's walked me through that. And my wife actually played a big role in the healing process there. But yeah, man, just feeling like I'm nothing and worthless, both in baseball career, and then both in relationship trauma, and just, man, something, didn't work out, and trying to move along, and just dealing with that level of anxiety and panic was incredibly hard. So I think, man, my faith in God, him seeing me through, and just I guess trying to stay as faithful as possible, showing up, expecting healing to happen. That's kind of what got me through it. But I think faith in God was the number one thing, man.
It's so interesting on this podcast, and just through all of the conversations that I have really with anybody about this topic of hardship and dealing with adversity. The people who come out the other side of hard things with a positive perspective and a great outlook on life, they always believe in something bigger than themselves. Whether that is a God or the universe or whatever it is for that person. You and I are both Christians. When did that journey start for you?
Yeah, man. I mean, that's so true. And I think too, that probably gives us that newfound appreciation for life, because we're like, no, I've been there where I was like, I don't like this life. It's like, this is hard. Like every single day was a struggle. Yeah. And so it does give you a new appreciation. So that's so true. So do hard things, right? That's one of your mantras, which I love. We can talk more about that soon. But for me, man, it's crazy. I grew up in church, I knew about God, man, so much about God. I knew the right things to say, knew the right things not to say. And I fit in, man. I was just like, I was playing Christian, and maybe I was, saved, and I gave my life to Jesus, but I wasn't like living that out. Wasn't like actively pursuing, reading the word, praying. I was kind of doing Brian. Yeah. And man, COVID. Well, the journey of baseball 100% woke me up to something more. Like, okay, I better figure this out and find purpose other than like my job or my career, because it's not as fulfilling as you think. I don't care if you're winning championships or if you're the MVP, bro. If you put all your eggs in that basket and you let it define you, whenever that time comes, when you hang the cleats up, or whenever that time comes after the championship and the new season starts and people are like, so what, dude? Like, what about this year? That's when you got to look to something bigger than you. Yeah. So between baseball, losing my identity there, and then COVID, dude, I think COVID woke a lot of people up. Unfortunately, I think it lulled a lot of people to sleep. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, Joe. I feel like two types of people, it happened to everybody, fell into two buckets. One bucket, man, devices, right? Food and maybe TV or social or you name it, just something that kind of lulls you to sleep and lowers your vibration. That people, man, they dug deep and they just kind of got lulled to sleep there. Put on weight, maybe develop some really bad habits, whatever. Not anything they can't overcome. Let's get real. But the other bucket of people, I feel like they woke up to something. It's like, wow, it's like that just happened, like a global pandemic. What? Yeah. And so that really, man, I started looking for answers, and I'm so glad. I feel like God led me into his word. I'll tell you what, never in my life have I imagined myself like waking up and wanting to read scripture, like wanting to pray. And that started happening to me. And I can't even take credit for that. It's like, that's all God. Like he led me to grow. And since then, man, I just feel like the wisdom, the truth, the purpose that comes from that is insane. Like you want a blueprint for your finances or a blueprint for business, like read Proverbs every day. right? So that was a big change for me. I think it was COVID that kind of woke me up and shook me up and said, it made me realize, like, stop playing Christian, stop playing this dude who, like, you know, wants to like look good for other people. It doesn't matter what people think about me.
Yeah.
The only thing I want to worry about is what God says about me. If I can stay there, bro, and you can stay there and people can stay there, it loses like people's rejection or approval. It loses the power, and then you're able to walk in more freedom.
Dude, we got to talk about that more, because I think caring about what other people think about us is something that everybody deals with on some level.
Universal.
Right?
Yeah.
Universal.
It's also like tribes in Africa. Yeah. Like,
yeah. And so there's this great quote. I don't know who said it, but it goes, "I'm not who I think I am. I'm not who you think I am. I am who I think you think I am." And it gets a little complicated.
That was like
right?
Inception, bro.
Yeah. But essentially, right, like we get so caught up sometimes in what we think other people think about us that we end up becoming that person. And that's not even, that's not even close to who we are or who we're meant to be. So tell me a little bit about like that transition for you from, okay, I care a lot about what other people think about me, this is how I feel about myself, to this freedom now that you have to not really care about what the world thinks, because that's not what matters.
Yeah, dude, that's powerful, man. I think it's just to like throw the caveat out there. You're always a work in progress. You know, it's like, I don't believe like you'll reach nirvana or you have this Zen Buddha moment where you're like that forever. Like, I don't care what people think, and I'm just in this happy place. That is just like our cars, man, like the vehicles in our life. We need to maintain our vehicles. We got to maintain like our souls. We got to really like show up consistently and do the things that reinforce that belief and that foundation of, no, I'm not who they say I am, and I'm not who sometimes I believe I am. Because again, talk about the true self, false self, that exists. And I think the enemy of your greatness, let's say, the enemy of your life and you reaching your full potential, wants you to believe the lie. If he can't stop you from doing certain things, if he can make you believe a lie about yourself, like you're not worthy or you're not made for more, that's probably the best thing he can do, because then you're living in that place, that lowered state, thinking you're going to be ineffective. And this is so me, bro. What was the question?
No, I was just kind of curious about that transition for you from
people,
caring what other people think to not caring, and like how that's allowed you to operate on a whole new level and freed you up.
Dude, you're so good at you're gifted in communication, podcasting, talking. So for me, a quote that comes to mind, I think is, it's C.S. Lewis. I know it's C.S. Lewis. One of the greatest, by the way, freaking one of the GOATs out there. He said, man, nothing you don't give away or nothing you haven't already given away can ever truly be yours. So I think about that quote and I'm thinking, okay, what does that mean? I felt what that means, actually. I think back to when I was playing baseball in college. You're going to get sick of that. But I blew up on Twitter, bro. Blew up. Like I was at like 500 followers and I got to 50,000 like in a few weeks, dude. So that was kind of back when Twitter was popular, but it was all from some photo when I was playing in a super or a regional. And so I started getting that like exposure way before that was like kind of a thing, like the viralness or whatever. Yeah. And I wasn't ready for it, bro. I was not ready for it because I was living for the retweets, man, living for the likes and the comments. And that's always something we got to like make sure we're good on, right? And keep in check. But I was living for that, man. So what happened was I kind of reached this plateau and had that downward spiral with my personal life. And I felt like, man, it was God drawing myself to him. And so what happened there is I had to let it go. I had to say, look, you gave me exposure or a platform, and now it's like, it doesn't define me, right? Because it really did for a season. And so for me, I think the biggest change has been being able to say like, hey, if you take it away, it's all good. And if I can't say that, like if I can't delete my Instagram tomorrow, right? My business is pretty much Instagram and online coaching. So that'd be a big one. You'd have to open another door somewhere, right? But if I can't say that, right? If I can't say this is my business and it's not even mine, take it. I'm still good. Like I'm still good because you're good. I got you. I got purpose. You're going to open a door, and I believe in that. If I can't say that, then it's a prison. It's holding me. So just like the money, Joe, it's like do you have your money, or like, do you own your money, or does your money own you? You know, do I own my social media or my whatever, or does that really own me? So that right there, man, is the key. And I think being more focused on what God says, who God says I am over people, it gives me the freedom. So compliments, man, I love it. Some guys will comment and be like, I mean, Joe, you're like, dude, I freaking love your stuff. I love that too. But even then I'm like, okay, but still, like, thank you. I appreciate that. But I can't let that kind of blow my ego up. Just like I can't let someone's comments destroy me.
Yeah. And to anybody listening, I just want to circle back to something you said, Brian, at the beginning of being a rough draft. Bob Goff said, I believe, we're all still rough drafts of the person we're becoming. And it's not about perfection. And like, you know, I think it's important, at least for me, to let my audience know, like, I'm not perfect. Like I still struggle with that, right? Like you put a post up and you don't see like, oh man, I didn't get as many likes as I thought this post was going to get, right? It's still like on some level, like it chinks your armor a little
100%.
bit, right?
Yeah.
And like, so for you, what is that balance? Because your following's bigger than mine, right? And you get a lot of comments, a lot of likes, a lot of views. When you're putting something up, is there like part of you that still like has that urge, that temptation to say like, let me check and see like what this looks like?
Never. No, I'm kidding, dude. I'm kidding. No, of course. I mean, that's part of it. And that's an active fight. I think it really, you have to take inventory. And I think what I preach to my clients, Joe, is like part of being successful and being consistent is just like zooming out sometimes. Like you don't got to win the perfect day. Sometimes you got to be consistent that week. And so what I do with my clients is, man, we have the weekly type of check-in, a weekly type of roundup. And so if you nip something in the butt within a week, like, it's good. It's all good. You get back on the wagon, you're fine. 1 week won't make or break you. So the best week, man, good, like awesome, cool. But are you going to show up this week? Or are you going to rely on the last week's win? Yeah. Right. Trajectory versus current results. And so to answer that, question a little bit better is, man, of course I get that, urge to look and to check. And sometimes I'm like, okay, well, maybe I won't post something like that as much, and I don't think that's a bad way to look at it if it's healthy, right? Because you got to know what people are looking for, but you also got to separate your self-worth from other people. Like, again, I trust me, I brought it up. I don't think, because I kind of did gain some traction here this year when I went fully into the online stuff. And I don't think I would be able to handle it as well today if I didn't go through Twitter and the exposure there and just collapsing and just putting all my worth into that, as well as I could today if I didn't go through that.
Beautiful, man. Well, speaking of showing up, the second question I want to ask you is about hard things that you've chosen to pursue yourself. So we talked a little bit about things that happened to you with baseball, the identity transition, relationship change. But now I want to ask you, what's the hardest thing that you've ever done on purpose? And why have you done that thing?
Man, that's good. Some people out here like Nick Bear and you, and maybe you guys are just like, you guys want to torture yourself. Man, for me, it's kind of a funny one. I feel like one of the hardest physical things I've done was up in Columbus with some buddies, and it was for cancer research funding, one of those fundraisers. And I signed up for like a 25K cycle. So, I was like, this is great. 25K. We hit the 25 mark. I'm like, I'm feeling good. Like, I'm done. He goes, dude, you're going 50. I'm like, bro, I haven't even trained for this, bro. The longest, Joe, I've ever been on a bike in the saddle was maybe 3 miles. And I go from that to 25 to 50. He goes, bro, you're going 75. I'm like, dude, stop. We hit 75. And then guess what? He's like, dude, you're really going to quit? We're going to do a freaking century ride. Is that what they call it?
Something like that. 100K, right?
Yeah, 100K century ride. And so I ended up doing 100 miles on the bike, and 100K. No, it was 100 miles on the bike. And it was an absolute freaking journey, like, especially not training for it. But you learn, man, I don't care what it is. It's all relative too, because if you're Cameron Haynes, for instance, I mean, like a marathon's like, what do you mean? I did that between coffees, right? But for me, that was big. And so I think you learn so much about yourself. You learn how to cope. You learn coping mechanisms, what you need to focus on. If you're focused on that pain, dude, good luck.
Yeah.
And if we're focusing on pain and negativity on a day-to-day basis, good luck. You're gonna manifest. You're gonna create more of those situations. What you look for and what you focus on really does grow. I mean, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he, right?
Yeah, I think I don't know who said this, but anxiety gives small things big shadows, and what we put attention on gets bigger, right?
Yeah.
And so again, focusing on the negative versus the positive. Let me ask you this. So obviously you run your own business. You're also married. For me, those are two of the hardest things in my life.
Yeah.
So I would love to hear your take on those two categories of life and like what's challenging about those things and like how you handle it.
You're married too, right? You said?
Correct.
Yeah. I was going to make a joke too. Like, what's the hardest thing you've done voluntarily? I'm like, bro, propose and get married.
No, it's funny, man. When I grew up, my parents have a great marriage. When you're a kid, you don't think too much about it, but you think like, marriage is awesome. So when I knew that my wife was going to be my wife, I told my parents, told my grandparents, was going to propose. And I started talking to more people about it. And the closer I got to marriage, the more I heard like, dude, it's going to be the hardest thing you're ever going to do. And it went from this fairy tale thing to like, this is magic to like, all of a sudden, this is work. This is hard. And it has been, and it's also been absolutely incredible. So we've been married for just over 2 years. How long have you and your wife been married for?
Yeah, same. We got married right before COVID. So February 2020, man.
Wow, just snuck it in under the wire.
That's man, big. We're the last hoorah for a lot of our friends. And unfortunately, I feel bad for anyone listening and that happened to them. Like a lot of weddings got canceled, money, like, dude, that was a nightmare. But that was a big God wink, we call it, because God just orchestrated this perfect day, perfect wedding, the live music, the people there, the sunset, like you couldn't draw it up any better. But then you realize like, that's almost that fairy tale-esque to reality in a nutshell, right? Because then it's like, oh yeah, this is the real work. Now it kind of begins, right? The honeymoon phase eventually fades. And that's a whole nother podcast because we moved in with our in-laws right after because of COVID. Nice. So I'm like, man, if we can do this, we can make it through anything. We'll be all right. But man, running a business and having, being married, I agree with you, man. It's the best. It's hard, man. It's hard work. Relationships are hard, especially when you say, I'm with you to the end. I'm not leaving. You can kill me maybe. Like my wife, she can kill me, but I'm committed to you. Like what God brings together, let no man separate. And I'm in it. I'm here. It doesn't make it easier though. It gives that security. And so the real work begins. And the hard part with what my wife and I do is we're in the same kind of business industry. And of course we're living together married. And so it's one of those things where we do have to really be good about communication. We really have to be good about like routines and space and stuff like that. What I'll say, man, is we balance each other out like nobody's business. And so thank God, I feel like just like a good business partner, she helps me in a lot of ways where I struggle. And then vice versa, man, like vice versa, where I can hopefully help her become more of who she is. That maybe is like underutilized, right? So she can wake up to more of Gigi Pruett, right? Same thing with me. She's going to help me wake up to more Brian. And that's a beautiful picture, bro, of what marriage is. It's a redemption. It's like it's a new creation, and it's a powerful thing, man. So I think for anybody married, like, how it is, and what culture preaches or what culture shows us is, man, whatever is easy, like that's going to bring you the most fulfillment. If you're not married, if you're single, like our culture does not celebrate getting married, having kids, just doesn't do that. And, but you and I both know from physical fitness, from business, the things that are easy aren't really the stuff that fills us up. Yeah. Most of the things that are worth it, bro, are the stuff that you actually have to get uncomfortable and you have to grow. And you have to say no to me, right? Like and I'll finish here, man. Like I swear, I go on tangents. But Joe, hardest part about marriage, dying to Brian and what Brian wants. Because when you're not married, you can do whatever you want. Like you can do you, and then the girl or your significant other will walk away eventually. But you can do whatever you want. But then once you strap it in, you're like, hey, we're in this thing. We're married. You do have to learn how to die to yourself well and sacrifice.
That was so beautifully said. I, for one, did not realize how selfish I was until I got married, right? Like
That's the truth.
It's the truth. And, just to bring it back full circle to the beginning of our COVID wedding talk, my wife and I actually got married. Yeah. So our original wedding was supposed to be June 2020, and we actually postponed that. And we got married with just our parents and our siblings in May of 2020, like outdoor wedding, makeshift. It was beautiful. It was absolutely perfect. Wouldn't want to change it for the world. And the funniest part is we exchanged our vows, in sickness and in health. And that night, my wife is like, my stomach kind of hurts. And over the next few days, her stomach hurts more and more. Her appendix burst. She goes in for emergency surgery by herself, like no visitors in the hospital. It's still the early pandemic. And then I spent the next week just taking care of her, giving her medicine, Gatorade, making sure she was okay. And like, that was actually one of my favorite memories from the beginning of our marriage. Wow. Because when you care so deeply about another person, you just totally lose yourself. And all your focus is on that person that you love so much. And I almost wish I could bottle up that feeling and like take it with me when I want to like go get an extra workout in, but I know I should probably be spending it with my wife, or I want to take on an extra client, but I know I haven't been home all day. And it's definitely a tough thing to die to yourself. It's beautifully said,
bro. Yeah. Just saying, I mean, not to get like super spiritual, but like, I mean, whether you're talking literal or figuratively, man, Christ is the example that like greater love has no man in this, no person in this. You lay your life down for your friends. You lay your life down for the people you love. And that's, I think you and I would agree on this too. The motivation is always love. Bro, the prize of life is love. It's not to get to the mountaintop and be the best in the world. Like you're gonna be miserable up there. The gift is love. Like the gift of life is love. And so whether it's your marriage, your business, whether you're showing up and getting more fit, I try to tell my clients all the time, bro, the motivation is love. You can give more to other people. Your wife, your husband, your friends, get a better you. And if you live from that, that's the only thing in life I feel like is sustainable, is that place of love. Because if you're just in it for the aesthetics, if you're just in it for the money, bro, you're going to hit a wall and you're going to give up. But love is the most powerful force on earth, bro. And I think I'm just going out there on a limb and saying, because I feel like that is how this whole thing came into being, is because of love. So don't quote me on that, but
amen. I'm going to throw a phrase out there and I want to hear your thoughts on it. So it's been said potentially by me, but I honestly can't remember if I said this from my own brain or if I'm pulling this from somewhere else. But sometimes you have to be selectively selfish so that you can be sustainably selfless. And I'm curious what that means to you, or what comes to mind for you. Cause I have some thoughts of my own, but I can repeat it also if you like.
That's fire, bro. You're a genius, dude. I gotta binge listen to your podcast and all that, man. I'm just super fired up. We connected, but shout out Jake Hill. Thanks for connecting, man. So I would say, man, what comes to mind, cause this is awesome because I kind of preach this and this is a part of coaching and all that, is what comes to mind is I'm in a plane. And they talk about, hey, we lose oxygen levels. What do? Do you scramble and try to help everybody else and you freaking pass out and no one gets helped? Or do you put that mask on, you take care of yourself, that way you can take care of other people? If you don't do that, right, then people aren't just going to get helped. Or put it this way, in a positive reframing, is when you take care of yourself, Brian takes care of himself, Joe takes care of himself, we can give more to our spouses. We can give more to our clients, our business, our hobbies. And if we don't, then we just are limited. So to me, that phrase is awesome. You can have sustainable, would you say impact or sustainable?
Sometimes you have to be selectively selfless. Nope. Selectively selfish to be sustainably selfless.
That's right. Yeah, that's beautiful, man. Because you can scramble and you can try to go and give. But if you don't work on yourself, if you don't take care of yourself, your physical, mental, spiritual, you name it, you'll fizzle out. And that's doing other people a disservice. So you win in the short term, but then you lose in the long term. And what's a win? I think it's long-term success, longevity, sustainability.
You just walked yourself right into the third question beautifully. I place a lot of emphasis in my life on the long term,
Yeah.
on being consistent over a long period of time.
How old are you,
And
by the way?
how old do you think I am?
Oh
Curious.
man, you gotta put me on the spot like
I'll put
that?
you on the spot. I'll guess your age.
Yeah, what you got?
27.
Wow, let's go, dude. I shaved the beard today. I'm 29, turning 30.
Okay.
I feel like you're the same age, 27.
28.
28.
Yeah,
Okay, good.
it's
Good.
right there.
Like,
So yeah, so long-term consistency. And so this is called the Project Endure podcast. The next question's a simple one. What does the word endurance mean to you?
so good. I think in a goofy way, I think about my butt on that saddle, doing 100 miles on the bike. I'm like, this is what it means to endure. No, I think, man, that's such a good question. I always go like, my mind goes super deep most of the time, but it's finding your why and your purpose. That's greater than you. And I think it's having an example, right? Having an example of people in your life. For me, the best example we already know is Jesus, right? The endurance, he had a mission, bro. He had a purpose. And again, it all stemmed from love. It all stemmed from loving the world, right? So for me, I think endurance is finding your why. There's a quote out there where it's like, man, if you a dude with the big enough why will get over and overcome anyhow. Like we'll figure it out, dude. You will figure it out if you can create, develop, nurture, and get super freaking familiar with your why. What is the why in your life? Because that's how you'll overcome. That's how you endure. If you don't have a why, bro, like why quit, dude? If it doesn't matter, then what's the point? And so that goes back to kind of the belief in, I don't think this is an accident. I don't think people should just like live, passively and not live passionately, because this life matters, man. So yeah, I mean, finding your why, finding your purpose, everything is working for you. It's teaching you, and you have to keep enduring because, man, your purpose is always, it's continual. It's always going to be in the future.
Dude, Romans 5, 3-5. Not only in that, but we rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope. And hope does not put us to shame because God's love has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit, who's been given to us. It's right there, man.
Amen,
it's right
dude.
there.
I'm so glad you called that verse up. That's beautiful. And that's such a great like combination of processes too. Right.
Yeah. And I don't think we can have endurance without hardship or struggle or suffering, right? If it was easy, it wouldn't be endurance.
Bro, think about like, I think Andy Mineo said it in a rap song, but it's like, who's David without Goliath? Who is Joe without your adversity?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how you grow, dude. The giants in your life, the panic attacks, the anxiety. I wouldn't be Brian. I wouldn't be who I am without walking through that. I can now have more empathy with people. I can now have more passion for life because I know what it feels like to feel helpless. And so that's a really powerful idea. And I think you said it perfectly in that scripture too. The scripture speaks perfectly, is because finding your why, finding your purpose is the hope. Yeah. If you have no hope, man, you will not make it far. They did a study. I think it's I forget who I was talking to the other day. Can't remember his name. I can't recall who I was talking to, but he works in an old people's home. Why can't I even think of the word?
A retirement home.
Retirement home. That's the one. Yeah, for seniors, right? Seniors. That's what I was thinking of. But he's like, man, it's crazy when old people lose hope, they just tank. They go downhill quick, and they fizzle out and they pass. If you have no hope, man, you have no future. Right? If you have no future, then what are you doing? That you're gonna have adversity in this life, so it's really easy to quit. But if you have hope, if you have a purpose, if you have something bigger than you that you believe in, you got everything you need. Because that right there is the game changer. If you have hope, man, you can keep putting one step forward, 1% better.
Yeah. I also think what you said there was really important about having empathy or being able to be empathetic. I was looking back at a few of the blogs I've written over the past few years. And in January of 2020, I went to the DMV here in Philadelphia to switch my driver's license from New Jersey to Pennsylvania. And I don't know how much you know about me, Brian, but I have a genetic eye condition. So I'm losing my sight.
I was going to ask you about this, man.
Yeah. So essentially genetic eye condition, progressive loss of eyesight. There's no cure. Legally blind in my right eye, left eye's pretty good. But long story short, I went to get my driver's license thinking I just had to like show them some paperwork, some documents, but they made me take an eye test and I wasn't expecting it. And I didn't pass the eye test. And so the lady said, we can't give you your license. And so I kind of like choked up and kind of like asked her nicely a couple times and pleaded with her to just like, I explained, I can see, this test is really hard for me. So she sent me back without the Pennsylvania license. And as a grown adult, 26 years old at the time, driving back home in my car, just like bawling my eyes out, like crying uncontrollably, called my mom, got home, had like an hour before I was going to the clinic to work, just like turned on the shower, just laid down on the floor and just cried. And that day, I remember going into work just like any other day, put on a brave face. Nobody would have known anything was wrong. But I swear, man, people were just nicer to me that day. And like every smile, every time somebody asked about how I was doing, every little gesture was just amplified and it meant the world to me. And I wish I could bottle up that feeling and carry it with me on the days where I lose sight of the fact that everybody's struggling with something. And underneath the surface, behind the surface, we don't know what somebody else is going through. And to just like be kind and to help other people, to lift other people up, because even the smallest gestures can have the biggest impact. And I think that's so important, especially in those seasons of life where we are feeling good. And we might lose sight of the fact that, we all feel down from time to time, and somebody that you're interacting with, more likely than not, is in one of those valleys. I think that's a game changer.
Yeah, dude, that was beautiful, man. Like you got such a crazy good story. And I think what I'll speak life into you is, I'm not sure exactly timeline and if they've given you much. But dude, I was going to say like everybody can see, right? But not everyone has vision. So if you lose your sight, or when that day comes, or if that day comes, right, you still have vision, which is more important. Some people see stuff. They can't even see what's in front of them. Right. Yeah. you got vision, you can see stuff and you can empathize, and it's amazing, dude. The world needs more Joe. So keep creating. I was going to say this too. I was reading the book, The Genius of Jesus by Irwin Mcmanus. Have you read it?
I have not. Sounds good though.
It's pretty intriguing, but he talks about, and I love what he says about empathy. He says, empathy is not only the highest form of intelligence, but it may also be our greatest expression of strength. Pretty fire, dude. Like no one really thinks about that, but man, if you can empathize well, and I feel like, like Paul had a thorn in his side, kept him humble, but I think it also was a blessing in disguise too, because he was able to see people's hurt or deal with the struggle like some people can't whenever they're successful or whatever. That's really cool that you're walking through that and you're sharing your story. Like that's amazing, bro.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that a lot. And actually, one of the things I'll say is what I've lost in sight, I've gained in vision. And it's just, right. It's the truth.
That's good, bro.
It's the truth, man. And the crazy part is like, if I had the choice as a child, I would have never chosen this, but I'm really grateful that I'm dealing with it, because I wouldn't be who I am without it. Just like David and would need Goliath to be who he is. And you need your adversities to be who you are,
Man, do you mind me asking how far, like in the future?
So that's the thing, man. I could wake up tomorrow and not be able to see my wife, or I could live another 30 years and have the same sight that I have right now.
Okay. So it's not like a gradual, it's more like a
sporadic. Yeah.
Dude, that is insane. I feel like that makes total sense, because like for me, seeing you and seeing your passion, seeing your energy, seeing your growth and your commitment, consistency, that makes total sense. The sad part about this, Joe, is, you're dealing with this and this is your story. The sad part is how many people you look around in the world, they're just walking around like they have 1 million years on this earth.
Yeah.
Like what? You know what I'm saying? At least like, and this sounds like, flippant, but a doctor told you like, hey, your time is limited, possibly. But why don't we live like that from the general standpoint?
Yeah.
So man, that's like, I love it. I mean, my prayer for you, dude, my hope for you is you live this long, healthy life, and you don't ever have to have that moment. But if you do, bro, you have the vision, you have so many other gifts, which is incredible. But I think that's just what I'm trying to encourage you and people listening. Our time is limited, whether we take our last breath tomorrow, right? Mm-hmm. Last breath, last sight, last words, man, like we don't have forever. So man, I think that's it, man. We got to stay present-minded, but eternally focused, but like present-minded, live in the present, stay there. Because the future will rob you, man. If you're always worrying about losing it, or if you're always worried about the future, you can't enjoy today. And you do that very well.
Ooh, the future will rob you. We got to trademark that. That's good.
Future robs you, bro. I was thinking about that big time today. I almost posted about it, but I was talking more like enjoying the journey. But like lately, I've struggled with that where I'll look into the future. Man, you get older, you start getting, you get married, you start thinking about kids, you start thinking about all these things. Your mind gravitates to the future a heck of a lot. Yeah. And the good part about that is you're planning, right? You're sometimes worried about some things that can happen. Yeah. But the bad part is Jesus says, don't worry about the future. Don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow's got its own worries. Stay today. Solve the problems today. Live today. Love today. Get better today. Get 1% better, 1% stronger today. And tomorrow will take care of itself. So that's the hardest part. When you ask the entrepreneurship and the marriage, how to balance those two things, I think the hardest part, man, is trying to run a business and think 5 years out, 10 years out, but still be able to be okay and live today, knowing like, yeah, my business is not as big as it will be or could be, but I'm okay. And I'm going to enjoy today.
Yeah. It's the only thing we have. Now, Brian, as we get ready to land this plane, I've got one final question, and this one is near and dear to my heart. We've talked about being in low places, and odds are there's somebody listening to this podcast who's in a low place. Mm-hmm. And so as you answer this next question, I want you to imagine that you're speaking directly to the person who has you in their ears, who's going through a tough time. And the question is, what advice would you have for somebody who's struggling through a tough, dark, hard season of life right now?
Wow. What a great question to end on. I would say, man, keep going. It's going to get better. I think about that situation I was in. I think about the situation someone listening could be in. It feels like it's never going to end. It feels like there is no way out. And it feels like there is no solution. You just it's going to be like this forever. Or maybe it's not even worth continuing. But I know this to be true, man. God's not done with you wherever you are. No matter how deep that valley goes, no matter how dark it gets, no matter how many times it happens, God's going to use it for your good. Man, one of my favorite scriptures is, I know all things work together for good for those who love God, called according to his purpose. Even people that have been abused or traumatized and all that, going through stuff that is not inherently their fault. Man, what people use or used as evil, God will mean for good. He will take that situation and grow you from it. So I think, man, that's what I would tell my younger self. So if you're listening and that kind of resonates with you, that's what I would tell myself. And the good news is, when you come out the other side like you're going to be a better, more well-rounded, fuller person than you are now. And so, man, get around good people. I think who you surround yourself, who you listen to, who you watch, what you consume really matters. It really does affect us. And I think the younger generation, I sound so old, by the way, but like younger kids, man, we consume a lot more than food. I talk about that a lot. We consume a lot more than food. And if we are what we eat, don't expect to be in a really good place when we're just consuming negativity, whether it's music or movies or your friends. Maybe it's that friend group, dude. But yeah, getting back to that person, man, it's no matter how much you're the size of the loss you've gone through, or family problems, financial problems, man, if you're alive, you got a pulse, dude. You're still in it. You got hope, and so you gotta remember that, and then just like we kind of preach, Get 1% better, man. Show up, thank God, move forward, and keep growing, man. You're made for more. So don't settle. Don't give up. You're made for more. Remember that.
And Brian, if people want more of your positivity, more of your energy injected into their lives, into their social media diet, so to speak, where should they go to find you?
Well played with the diet, by the way.
Thanks, man.
My podcast is Be Fit with Brian Pruett. I've been probably like once a month on average, release a podcast. I do everything from like fitness and health to wisdom from Proverbs and, you name it. Instagram is Brian_Pruett, Pruett. And then, my website's brianpruett.com. And I'm just really excited to grow. I'm all about becoming more fit, becoming more you, body, mind, spirit, the whole person. If you just do one, you're gonna do it at the expense of the others. If you can find the balance and you can get 1% better in those 3 areas, the world will be a better place because of it. So you need to become more. You need to get more fit, and that all comes from a place of love. All the discipline, all the hard work and all the hard nights or the long nights and hard days or whatever you're going through, it's all coming from love. So get more fit. You're made for more.
Brian, it is almost my bedtime, AKA 7 p.m. Eastern. And I'm ready to run through a brick wall, man. I'm going to be up for a while after this one.
So likewise, bro. Likewise. By the way, I'm very jealous of that bedtime. I used to be in the same boat trying to get to bed early, but I've been 9:30. But I cannot say how grateful I am. What you do is important. I believe you got a big future, a lot going on in the future, not just in terms of like exposure or money or whatever business, but dude, the people in your world and the future people in your world, man, you're going to impact some serious, at a serious level. So keep going, bro. I'm really proud of you.
Thank you, Brian. All the same to you, man. We'll have to do this again.
Super stoked, man. Appreciate you, Joe.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Project Indoor podcast, go ahead and subscribe, leave a review on your platform of choice, and share this episode with a friend. It helps us get more conversations like this out to more people like you. We appreciate you, and we'll talk to you next time. And one more thing. If you're looking for a community of people all striving to be better together, check out the Project Indoor Hard Things Club. The link is in the description below. We'd love to have you.